What is ethnomedicine? So, medical anthropologists, as we've been discussing this quarter, are really interested in diverse medical knowledge, broad, holistic sense. And that includes the diverse medical knowledge people have really throughout the whole world. In Fresh Fruit, Broken Bodies, we recently saw the use of a traditional tricky healer. And this is something that medical anthropologists are interested in, this kind of diverse medical knowledge. Estimates are that some 80% of people throughout the world use diverse medical knowledge to treat illness. And I think there is this increasing recognition of the need for not only the expansion of healthcare services, but also the expansion of culturally competent ethnomedical services that draw on a range of different medical knowledge and practice. We can think about ethnomedicine in relation to this idea of traditional medicine. There you see a market in Peru where many local plants used medicinally are distributed, bought, and sold. So traditional medicine, such as Peruvian herbal medicine here, really can be thought of as any of the knowledge, skills, practices, a medicine system. They may be based on particular kinds of theories, particular kinds of belief, experience in the sense of observation, among many different cultures and ethnic groups, both indigenous and migrant. So when we're thinking about traditional medicine, ethnomedicine, sometimes termed traditional medicine, we're also really referring to, right, these diverse ways of understanding what disease is and what causes it, what illness is and its causes, how one goes about treating the illness and disease, as well as just broader ideas about how to be well, how to heal, right, within that medical system. One of the issues in the study of ethnomedicine is sort of this idea that somehow we use medicine and we refer to biomedicine, and then we have this other category that we refer to like all the other medicine systems, as though what we refer to as medicine or biomedicine, ethnomedicine, don't have interconnections as well. Somehow when we use the notion of traditional medicine, then we make this distinction between what is kind of modern medicine and what is traditional medicine, which also, again, there's problems. We need to think critically about this. Different cultures, different groups throughout the world have many different forms of expert knowledge, technical ways of doing things, forms of science and technology, even if they're not always referred to as science or referred to as technology. They are essentially knowledge and means of doing things in the world. And so in this sense, really, these are just medicine systems, despite how there is this tradition of categorizing some as ethnomedicines. They're all really medicine systems in a kind of equivalent term. We can see this in a lot of different ways, but so-called ethnomedicines, the traditional cultures of which they're a part, have actually made many contributions to sort of dominant science, right, and dominant biomedicine. So there are estimates 25% of biomedical discovery really does have roots in traditional medicine. That, in fact, one of the ways you can see this is that within the pharmaceutical industry, they will classify any sort of ethnomedicinal use as a really good criteria for further, drug development. If it is known to be used ethnomedicinally, then it almost guarantees that the pharmaceutical industry, our biomedical system that we somehow branch and categorize as very, very different, right, will actually be able to use that to develop a successful drug. So the lines are much more complex than some of the terms allow us, and we do want to think critically about this. Another example would be vinblastine and vincristine. These are drugs that have been derived from periwinkle, plant, flower, and usually the development of these for chemotherapies attributed to Canadian chemists. But when we start thinking in so-called ethnomedical terms, in an anthropology of medicine terms, we realize that, in fact, it had been used for millennia in Ayurvedic medicine in India. Other parts of the world, particularly the Persian Gulf and Eastern Africa, also have medicinal use of this plant that far predates its discovery by Canadian chemists. They isolated the vinblastine and vincristine, but periwinkle itself had been used for things like cancer, known as Sadabahar, Sadapushpi, that the knowledge was already there. And this is important because we want to recognize that these medicine systems are more interconnected than we realize, and that ethnomedicine isn't just somehow fundamentally different, right? Somehow fundamentally other, somehow simply tradition, but in fact is interwoven, right, with biomedicine and with modern healthcare. One of the reasons we're talking about this is because we recognize, right, we need to be more culturally competent in providing healthcare to diverse people, populations throughout the world. One of the ways that when we talk about ethnomedicine, one of the things that sort of is a distinction with biomedical discussions is that ethnomedicine and the cultures that have developed these medical systems don't always make the same conceptual distinctions. They do not always make the same conceptual distinctions between things like the natural and the supernatural. That distinction and the idea of, let's say, religion and secularism, medicine, biology, religion, mythology, and so on. Instead of those categories being distinct, sometimes they are interwoven in a different way of thinking. So the Western doctor, right, diagnosed illness as being caused by germs or infection, and they will then prescribe an antibiotic like penicillin as the cure, where a so-called ethnomedical practitioner, traditional healer, may interpret the same illness as being caused by evil spirits and will diagnose and prescribe elaborate rituals in order for there to be a cure, for there to be healing. So in these ways, discussions about ethnomedicine can be different than a biomedicine. Natural illness is going to use these impersonal systemic terms, right? Even in the humoral sense that we've talked about, forces, conditions like cold, heat, imbalance in various natural elements, if you will. But even though natural illness is a very common type of ethnomedical practice, it is only one half of what we see. We also see the supernatural illness, a category, right, in ethnomedicine, where the illness is caused by two major types of forces. You have kind of occult forces, spirits or human spirit to cooperation, as well as then deities with their kind of cosmological rules and principles and so on. And so when we're talking about ethnomedicine, we may find these supernatural systems and conceptual distinctions and how illness is going to be diagnosed and thus treated. So to conclude here, ethnomedicine really is kind of the anthropology of medicine in all aspects. It's really the heart of medical anthropology. It's really recognized and focused on this notion that, well, how people treat illness, broadly speaking, is very diverse and can draw upon just a range of different kinds of human knowledge. So, on the one hand, when we were talking about ethnomedicine, we aligned it with sciences like biology and botany. We aligned it with, let's say, discoveries in contemporary pharmaceutical industry. But at the same time, ethnomedicine aligns itself also with religious institutions and beliefs, and can be quite a bit different than the diagnosis and treatment that we see in biomedicine. So it's a really rich area of medical anthropology and gives us a unique perspective on the human condition.